One Franklin D. Roosevelt, the grandfather of put it on the tab. Before FDR, the US government was like that one friend who only carries cash. If they didn't have it, they didn't spend it, unless there was a massive war. But the Great Depression hit, and FDR decided the old rules were boring. He introduced the New Deal. It was basically a giant coupon code for the American economy, but the coupon was printed by the government. He built bridges, dams, and a massive social safety net. Then World War II showed up, and the bill went from expensive to astronomical. By 1946, the debt was 106% of the entire U.S. economy. FDR proved that if the crisis is big enough, the budget doesn't matter. He didn't just open the door to debt, he ripped it off the hinges and threw it in the fireplace. Lyndon B. Johnson, Guns and Butter. In the 1960s, LBJ had a grand vision. He called it the Great Society. He wanted to end poverty and improve education, but there was a problem. The Vietnam War was raging. Most leaders would choose one, war or social programs. LBJ chose both. It was called the Guns and Butter policy. He funded both through deficit spending. This created a massive wave of inflation. It made the dollar worth less, and it made the debt a permanent part of the American engine. Richard Nixon, the end of real money. By 1971, the U.S. was in trouble. Other countries were nervous about American spending. They started trading their dollars back for gold. Nixon made a choice that changed history. He took the U.S. off the gold standard. Suddenly, the dollar wasn't backed by anything physical. It was backed only by a promise. This removed the last restraint on the printing press. The government could now borrow as much as it wanted. Without the gold anchor, the debt began to climb, and it never stopped. Ronald Reagan, supply-side debt. Reagan campaigned on small government. He promised to balance the budget, but his strategy was a paradox. He enacted massive tax cuts to stimulate growth. At the same time, he launched a massive military buildup. The idea was that growth would eventually pay for the debt. It didn't. Tax revenue fell. Military spending soared. Under Reagan, the national debt nearly tripled. He moved the debt from $900 billion to $2.7 trillion. He proved that you could be a fiscal conservative and still spend like a king. George H.W. Bush, the broken promise. Bush inherited the Reagan deficits. He famously said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." But the math didn't work. The deficit was growing too fast. He was forced to raise taxes to keep the government running. It was a drop in the bucket. The debt kept rising. He lost his re-election because of it. His failure taught every future president a dangerous lesson. Raising taxes is political suicide. Borrowing money is politically free. Bill Clinton, the surplus illusion. The 1990s looked like a miracle. The Cold War was over. The tech boom was creating massive wealth. For a few years, Clinton actually had a budget surplus. People thought the debt was over. It was an illusion. The surplus didn't account for the massive future costs of Social Security. The government was still taking money from the pension funds to pay for daily operations. The debt itself never actually went down. The underlying problems were just hidden by a booming stock market. George W. Bush, the trillion-dollar jump. Bush entered office with a projected $5 trillion surplus. He spent it immediately. He passed massive tax cuts in 2001. Then 9/11 changed everything. The global war on terror began. Iraq, Afghanistan, thousands of lives and trillions of dollars. He also created Medicare Part D. It was a massive drug benefit for seniors. It was completely unfunded. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, the surplus was a ghost. The debt jumped from $5 trillion to $10 trillion in 8 years. Barack Obama, the new normal. Obama took office during the worst crash since the Great Depression. The banks were failing. The auto industry was collapsing. He signed a nearly $800 billion stimulus. He kept the interest rates at zero. This made borrowing money feel free, so the government borrowed more than ever. In 8 years, Obama added $9 trillion to the debt. He nearly doubled the entire debt of every president before him combined. The trillion-dollar deficit became the new normal. Donald Trump, the era of excess. Trump promised to eliminate the debt in 8 years. Instead, he followed the Reagan playbook on steroids. He passed a massive corporate tax cut. Then the pandemic arrived. The government shut down the economy. To save it, they printed money at a record pace. Stimulus checks. Business loans. In a single year, the debt rose by trillions. Under Trump, the debt grew by about $7 trillion in just 4 years. The restraint of the Republican Party was officially dead. Joe Biden, the infinite ceiling. Biden inherited a world addicted to spending. He passed the American Rescue Plan, then the Infrastructure Bill, then the Inflation Reduction Act. Billions upon billions were injected into the system. While the pandemic ended, the spending didn't. The debt crossed $31 trillion, then $32, then $34. And now, interest rates are rising. The free money era is over. Today, the US spends more on interest than it does on its own military.